Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Direct Insurance Podcast, otherwise known as DIP, a podcast for independent insurance agents. I'm your host. My name is Kelsey. I am the digital marketing assistant as well as social media strategist for IAD. And today I am joined by a very, very special guest. My guest today is our industry partner, Shirley Lanier. So, Shirley, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for calling me special. I like that. I have been in the insurance business for about 10 years. I started out in the D-SNP market, and I learned it inside and outside. And for the first, say, 3 to 5 years of my existence in the insurance field or health insurance, that was primarily my business. So I understood it well, and I've sort of gravitated to other types of Medicare enrollees in the last 5 or 6 years.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me today, Shirley. So today we are actually going to be talking about D-SNPs, and we're also going to be talking about the differences between D-SNP products as well as the PACE programs.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and dip into some insurance. So
Let's dip in.
Yes, perfect. So Shirley, tell me a little bit about what is a D-SNP product and how does it differ from other types of Medicare products?
Okay. A D-SNP product simply means people who are on Medicare and Medicaid, and it's primarily income-based. So if your income exceeds a certain amount, and just for the sake of discussion, typically it's about $1,090 per month your gross income should be. And there are a few variables in there, but that's basically it. And D-SNPs are low-income Medicare product, and the people must have Medicare and full Medicaid, and if anyone knows about this field, that there are a lot of acronyms. There are QMB, QMB plus, SLIMB, things you probably don't hear if you really are not familiar with that market.
Mm-hmm. So how would you find that somebody would be able to become a little bit more familiar with this market and familiarize themselves with the different acronyms and the different products and things that they might need to know if they are looking into getting into the D-SNP market as an agent?
As an agent, the D-SNP market is so different from the what I call conventional or traditional Medicare because it requires a lot of hand-holding. It's typically a low-income person. Typically, they may not be very sophisticated with technology, require a lot of hand-holding. The front end require a lot of hand-holding. At the back end, you will get more phone calls from your D-SNP clients than from your traditional clients. And you have to be willing to really roll up your sleeves and work with them. They very often will call you as a first resort, last resort, and everything in between.
Yeah. I think that that's one of the really magical things about being an insurance broker is that most of your job is purely educational. You know, you're spending a lot of time with your clients and really teaching them the differences between all of these different healthcare products that could be available to them. And a lot of people might not even know that they qualify for a dual Medicare Medicaid type product because they've just kind of been told their entire lives that health insurance is, it can be expensive, and a lot of people will avoid having to seek out medical treatment because they find that it's just not affordable. And it's probably just because they either don't know that they qualify for either like a low income subsidy or something like that. So it's really like up to the broker to really educate their clients on what their qualifications are. And it could actually potentially save them thousands of dollars per year.
Most people typically know if they've been on Medicaid, even if they were under 65, over 65. If you're under 65, you've been on Medicaid, if you're low income, through the state of Michigan. And so they typically know. It's when they're on the cusp, perhaps, of losing their Medicaid. And a lot of things can trigger it. Say you get an increase in your Social Security payment, and all of a sudden, you're kicked off of full Medicaid. And someone will say, why was I kicked off? And I said, well, I know it sounds strange to you, but you make too much money. Well, I only get $1,200 a month. I said, I understand, but I always say, I didn't make those rules. If I made the rules, you could have it.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I don't want that increase. And I say, you have no choice.
Yeah.
If Social Security makes an increase, you get it regardless. Or perhaps their spouse died and they may get their spouse's Medicare or Social Security rather. And so all of a sudden their income is up and they've lost their Medicaid. And so it's very distressing to people who lose their Medicaid because Medicaid, Medicare, what's called a dual special needs population, pays everything. Mm-hmm. They have no copays, they have no hospitalization costs, and they're accustomed to that.
Yeah. Actually, so let's go ahead and jump into really quickly, who are the people that qualify for D-SNP products? I know that we were just talking about income-based, but
Right.
there are also lots of other stipulations to the dual Medicare and Medicaid products as well, besides income. So a lot of it can even be
Assets?
assets. Oh my gosh. I'm like, what's the word? Yeah. So like their assets have a lot to do with that as well. So like if they own maybe like 10 flat screen TVs, but then they make $20,000 a year.
Well, that person doesn't, again, Medicaid for SNPs, we call them SNPs, it's income based. First of all, started with your income. So if your gross income, that's gross, on a monthly basis is more than 1,098 or $1,100 a month, somewhere in that neighborhood, you don't qualify. You just don't. So it starts with your income. And then it goes into, are you on Medicare as well? And if you're not on Medicare, a lot of SNPs initially are not on Medicare. They may not have worked enough quarters to qualify for Medicare. And in that case, they have to apply. They have to apply for the state to pay their Part A premium and their Part B premium. And they may not know about that. So as an agent, sometimes we have to direct them how to apply to the state for your part, even though you're eligible for your Part A, for your Part B premium, because A and B both come with a premium.
So then let's go ahead and jump into the PACE programs. So what are PACE programs and how are they similar to D-SNP healthcare products?
Okay, so people that are on PACE are basically D-SNPs, except PACE stands for, I always have to look this up, Programs for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. And it's typically someone who may live in a senior community, and they always are duals. They have Medicare, they have Medicaid, but PACE provides more case management. They provide social interaction. PACE programs must have a facility where the recipient or beneficiary is taken out of the home on a daily or weekly basis for social interaction. They are provided meals, educational resources, things to get them out of their apartment if they live in an apartment, or if they live in a senior high-rise, low-rise community, or even if they live at home with a family member, then they take them out. And I always say it's a program with a hug, because it's a comprehensive team of social workers, dietitians, doctors, nurses, to make sure that the person is integrated as fully as can be into the community.
I've heard it described as granddaddy daycare.
That's a good one. And actually, as agents, we can't write PACE. So people have to be assessed to see if they're appropriate for PACE. And it does seem to be a lot of men. I had a client who went into PACE and he got kicked out because he was flirting with all the women.
Oh my God.
And of course, he was 78 years old and he was in a wheelchair. So the only way people lose their PACE coverage, again, is if their income exceeds the amount or if they're just deemed inappropriate.
So there are other stipulations to becoming a PACE eligible enrollee. So I'm going to kind of quickly go off of these. These are the things I had pulled from Medicare. Or sorry, I pulled these from Medicaid.gov. Yes. So in order for an enrollee to be qualified for PACE, the participants must meet the following criteria. They need to be medically qualified and must meet Medicaid's LTC or long-term care eligibility criteria, must be at least 55 years of age or older, and must live within the approved geographic area of the PACE organization. They must also be able to live safely in the community or not residing in like a full-blown nursing home or like skilled nursing facility at the time of enrollment, must be not concurrently enrolled in the Medicaid Michigan Choice Waiver, and must not be concurrently enrolled in a health maintenance organization or HMO. So there are lots of benefits to being part of a PACE program because, like, again, you kind of do get that like granddaddy daycare, the socialization, and it is still kind of like for those low income individuals. But there's lots of things where the needs of that individual might overlap between a D-SNP product and the PACE program, but you can't have both at the same time.
No, you can't have both at the same time.
Yeah.
So if someone is in PACE, they have either wanted to be in PACE, they're eligible for PACE, the PACE coordinators will come out and do an assessment to say, are you eligible? Do you meet the criteria? And if so, yes. And the people that are in PACE love it because they have transportation. However many times they go to the facility. I know in southeastern Michigan does have a PACE program. Not all parts of the state have a PACE program. Not all areas have a PACE program. And you may or may not see these little white vans that say PACE, Southeastern Wisconsin. And they physically come to where they live, take them out to the facility. They do crafts, they do music, they play cards. So a lot of social integration, which is part of being a whole person. I believe that. I mean, so many seniors, because their friends are somewhere else, or as we age, we lose friends. I always say, as we age, people that we love and care for us will leave us. Whether it's children going off to their own lives, or grandchildren, or just friends who've, gone on to
To the great beyond.
to the great beyond, the pearly gates. So they get depressed. So that really helps to, I think, stem the depression that some seniors have, or the feeling of loneliness, even sometimes living within a community or living with family members. They get depressed because the family members are off to work or doing other things. So I think it's a wonderful program. But again, they have to be assessed and be made eligible for the program. And as an agent, agents can't write it. But in the event that there is someone in a PACE program who wants to go back into a traditional D-SNP, they have to first disenroll from the PACE program.
One of the things that I think is very special about PACE in general is, like you said, was the socialization and being able to get out of the house.
Right.
Because I think that especially a lot of us during lockdown,
All of us.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, I had gotten to a point even with myself, because I was unemployed at the time, and it was just like day in and day out, the same thing. Like, for the first couple of weeks, it was like, yay, cool, vacation, woo, staycation, this is great. But after maybe the second or the third month, and then going into the fourth month, during the summertime, it wasn't so bad, because then you were able to kind of stick with your small circle of people that you kind of felt safe
Right.
being around, because we were all still 6 feet, but and I was still able to hang out with a couple of my girlfriends and their kids. We would just hang out outside, go in the pool, do whatever. So summertime wasn't so bad, but then once you kind of got into the fall things,
fall.
yeah, and it really, really took a toll on my mental health. So I can only imagine what it must be like for a senior to do this every day for years.
Right.
I mean, so for example, my grandfather had Parkinson's disease, and he had gotten diagnosed, I think maybe 10, 20 years ago, something like that. And for the last couple of years that he was alive, he was very, very depressed, because he was just I'm just kind of waiting for the Lord to take me home, And it's but when he finally did pass, we were granted, we were all sad, but at the same time, we were just yes, thank God, go be with God,
Be with God.
It's very depressing to kind of just be waiting around for and not really knowing where the time is going. So being able to have these programs available to our seniors is very important. It's something that I think that a lot of people don't really know about too, or even knowing if they even are eligible, or if they have a grandparent that's even eligible. So that's important to know as well.
And many SNPs are eligible, but they don't know that they are, and tell you as an agent, probably agents don't refer them to the program because
they don't
for the
make the
obvious
business from it.
reason.
Yeah.
For the obvious reasons. So the people that I know that are in the PACE program, they love it.
Yeah.
They love it because of the socialization. They love it because of being able to get out in the community. They're interacting with other people on a daily basis.
I think that what would be a really, really great happy medium, especially in the space of a broker, would be to have those social resources for seniors, maybe in a senior center, or just going out to be able to play bingo. But of course, you also don't have the added benefit of that transportation like you do with PACE. And that in and of itself is a huge barrier to entry for a lot of seniors, because especially if you are low income, the likelihood of you owning a vehicle is very pretty much slim to none, because if you don't already have high income, it's either if you have a car, it's probably because you're living in it at a certain point,
And many of them do. Some of my clients do have cars, but they've had them for years and years and years. And so your automobile, your home, you can be a D-SNP and own a home.
Yeah.
Not counted in your assets. But then you have the cost of maintaining the home. And some of them just aren't able to do that. Things like roof repairs, and furnace goes out and the water heater goes out.
Even those of us with full-time jobs
Right.
don't have enough money for that, especially in
Right.
today's market. And it can be really hard to be able to afford those things. I was actually just having a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago about how my husband does have a life insurance policy, but we've kind of set it up so that how many years would I be able to live off of that type of income without him?
Well, then how conversely, so he has life insurance. How about you?
I'm pretty sure I do. I hope I do.
Because the same thing applies,
I just don't know if I lost my policy through my old job. It's something that I need to keep calling on, but they close at 5. And it's like when I work till 5, it's like, oh my gosh, I just want to be able to
just think about it.
Yeah. I feel like I just need to take an entire day off to be like, okay, I need to call the doctor. I need to call the dentist. I need to get this done. I need to go see my therapist.
It's what all of us go through that. And you know it. And it's especially after COVID. So we're coming out of COVID or the pandemic or the pandemonium, as my friend calls it. So how do we order our lives after that? And how do we get over this sense of, I think, impending doom that's sort of hanging over everyone, sort of like this sword of Damocles? Like, how do you do that?
And we're all on edge.
Exactly. And I think we all have like probably low depression without actually realizing it.
Mm-hmm. I want to say that there is some sort of like crazy statistic that I was reading about a couple of days or weeks ago that said that 15% of the elderly population aged at least 65 and older suffers from mental disorders that are caused simply by stress.
Sure.
And a lot of the stress can come from financial stress, not knowing if you have enough money to pay all the
enough
bills.
Money, enough food.
Yeah. And these are the problems that a lot of people are going through. But that's actually kind of where I feel like D-SNP products can even benefit them in that sense as well. Because there are lots of products out there. I mean, we can't get like too specific about which ones. But there are different plans out there that offer benefits like food or
benefits, transportation.
Paying the electric bill or even like little Visa gift cards.
Right. And some of those, the insurance market is so competitive now that if one carrier does something, the other carrier says, oh, well, we'd better do that too so that we stay in the game. So I really like to say that they're very similar. There's not a lot of difference between carriers or among carriers, I should say. The difference as an agent for me is customer service. So some carriers have excellent customer service, some not so much. It depends on whether or not a client will get caught in call center hell. Like, press this, press that, press that. Funny story. I had a client last week, and she's been my client for 6 or 7 years. And I met with her, and we're going over. So I was calling the customer service with her, and press this, press that on my phone. She said, how do you do that? I said, do what? How do you press the buttons when they tell you to press 1 or 2 or 3 without hanging up on the call? I said, what do you mean? She never knew how to turn on
the dial pad on her smartphone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she could never call service.
Oh my goodness.
So it's just those little things that we don't think about because we do them automatically, that people who don't understand technology or maybe had a flip phone and their children gave them an iPhone or even an Android, and they don't know how to use the functions.
Oh, 110%. That is my grandma. Oh my goodness. She had a flip phone for years, and then we finally got her a smartphone a couple of years ago. And trying to teach her how to use it was like trying to teach a dog how to meow. I feel like I talk about my grandma quite a bit on this podcast. Sorry, Mary. But yeah, I mean, she's so technologically inept. And I used to think that maybe it was just her. That
no,
was
it's
like
not.
This,
it's not.
Because she was like the very stereotypical like 50s housewife, where she stayed home, took care of the kids, did all the cooking, did all the cleaning. She had like a secretary job back in like the, early to like late 50s, and then married my grandpa, moved to Michigan, and was just a homemaker for the rest of her life. She never really needed to use technology. And even today, when I'm sitting here talking with quite a few of our agents about social media and social media marketing, there is still a very large generational gap in the use of technology and how it should be used, or just even in the strategy, overall business strategy.
It's definitely generational.
Yeah.
I mean, you're considerably younger than I am. So, and it's sort of like you're either Gen Z or millennial.
Oh, I'm a millennial.
In regard, what does that all mean? And I'm way beyond that. So it is generational. And so I probably was dragged screaming and kicking into the 21st century because of this industry. You have to. You just have to do it.
I think when it comes to business, it's either evolve or die.
Right.
There are so many businesses. Like, so for example, I used to work at Victoria's Secret, and I was there for about 10 years. I started working with the company in about 2013, and then that was when like the business was really, really booming, was that time from about 2013 to 2016. But then 2016, things kind of started dropping off. And a lot of people can kind of attest to this if you've watched the Hulu special on Victoria's Secret. It's very interesting. But at the same time, one of the things that was kind of happening was the fact that there was lots of bad PR kind of going on with the company about body dysmorphia and a lot of like women experiencing eating disorders and just the amount of like Photoshop and, I don't want to say like false advertising, but at the same time, it's still something that that especially young women in today's world are dealing with like filters. Photoshop, it kind of showing up online in a different way that you would in person. As a freelance makeup artist, I am always the advocate for you can
looking natural.
Yeah, well, not even just like looking natural. You can still have like a really like beautiful, like crazy makeup look, but at the end of the day, it's just makeup. It washes off. You don't have to use filters. You don't have to get surgery. You don't have to do all of this stuff to be beautiful because you already are.
We're kind of going away from Medicare and D-SNP, but that ship, I believe, has sailed. There's so many young girls. It doesn't matter, what's on TikTok, what's on Instagram, and they want to be social media stars, or they want to be relevant, or they want to look like, God forbid, the Kardashians.
Oh boy.
And they think that's normal, and not realizing that the Kardashians or whomever else have filters and filters and filters, and we like to say body enhancements.
Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I don't want to meet Kim Kardashian. I want to meet Kim Kardashian's makeup artist. His name's Mario, and he has like an entire makeup line. And I'm like, I want to meet Makeup by Mario, please. But so let's go ahead and jump back into our D-SNPs and PACE. So let's go ahead and talk about what are the stipulations to D-SNPs and what are the financial barriers amongst individual seniors that can have an impact on their PACE or D-SNP eligibility. So I know that we've kind of already talked about this, but let's go a little bit deeper into that. So what are the financial stipulations between PACE and D-SNPs that really will separate one from the other?
The financial, it's basically the same.
Yeah.
It is the same. The difference in PACE is that someone voluntarily wants to be in a PACE program. They're both D-SNPs. Mm-hmm. They both have Medicare and Medicaid. And someone is aware of the PACE program, whether they were referred to it by a friend, a family member, or a social worker. That's the only difference. Mm-hmm. So there's no financial barriers to entering. You either qualify by virtue of being low income at a certain level, again, having a monthly gross income of around $1,100 a month. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it. So someone, again, is referred to a PACE program by family member, friend, church member. They just like going. Mm-hmm. And it's purely the socialization, and it's the interdisciplinary team that works with them, a social worker, and they handle all of their medical needs or social needs. So the person doesn't have to call the dentist or call the ophthalmologist if they need an eye exam, or call the podiatrist if they need to have their toenails clipped because they're diabetic.
Yeah.
So the PACE program will do, it's all-encompassing. They'll do all of that for the client, as opposed to being a D-SNP. You pretty much do it for yourself. A family member does it. Your case manager with the state of Michigan, they're short-staffed. They, sorry, state of Michigan, seldom answer their phones. Mm-hmm. I've talked to people and I say, well, did you talk to your case manager? I don't even know who that is. They sent me a letter and said, her name is Mrs. Jones or Mr. Smith or this, and they don't answer the phone or leave a voice message, or the mailbox is full.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's one of the biggest issues that I think as a country we're kind of experiencing right now is just everybody is short-staffed. But there are so many businesses that are competing for audience's attention in order to generate awareness about the business and in order to make sales. So even when I am explaining to our agents that are on our social media programs, I tell them, I'm like, you are not only competing for the attention of your consumer from other agents or brokers in your area or in your state, you're competing for the attention of that consumer from every business on the planet, because there are so many businesses that are out here advertising on Facebook, Instagram, on the news, on the radio. We're all competing for the same attention and the business of that consumer. But I think that it's more important to really like niche down, think about who your target audience is. And so if you are out here to, really help these D-SNP clients that, let's be honest, these people probably need more help than your average Medicare
they
consumer.
Absolutely do. And that's why a lot of agents just won't do it. It's like, I just, it's too much work. It's too much work. It's too much work. And, we discussed earlier this morning, the state can arbitrarily move someone from a plan you've enrolled them in and move them to another plan. It's called the MMP, the Michigan Medicaid program. And so that's, someone will say, well, God, that person was my client and now they got moved to XYZ. And the client often doesn't understand why. And so as an agent, if you don't understand why, you can't help them to either get back to the plan you put them in or opt out of the MMP, which is another process.
Yeah. So as an agent or a broker, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what are the educational resources that as a broker you would look to in order to educate yourself about the different changes that are happening perhaps in the market that would impact your clients.
Well, a lot of it is the carriers that I'm contracted with. A lot of it is my FMO, IAD, who really do a really good job of keeping agents informed, educating agents, having seminars, having webinars, having Zoom meetings. It's all in the CMS guideline rules and regs, but that could be thousands and thousands of pages long. So, one of the things you can do is familiarize yourself with some of the terms that are specific to D-SNPs and, the QMB, the QMB plus, the SlimB. Initially, it sounds daunting. You're like, what is that? I don't understand it. It's an alphabet soup of acronyms.
Yeah.
But it's like everything else. You familiarize yourself with it, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you are doing it. But that kind of tends to, a lot of agents say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Then there's some agents say, I love the D-SNP market. Bring it on, bring it on. But they're willing to put in the time in the front ends. And the key is education. So if you educate your client extremely well, when you get letters from the state, when you get letters, call me. Read it to me. Let's go over it. What does it mean? Are you losing your coverage? Will you lose your coverage? Redetermination letters that are going out. There's just a lot of hand-holding, a lot of work in the D-SNP market. And a lot of agents don't want to do that. But once you have a D-SNP client and you've helped them and they know they can call you, that's your client for life.
I agree. I definitely think that so actually, this is something that my choir teacher used to say to us when I was in high school, was that he would say repetition is the mother of skill. So the more that you familiarize yourself with these products and the more that you kind of familiarize yourself with the acronyms and really like digging deep and educating yourself more. And personally, I am a what's it called? A propellant? I am a proponent. I'm a proponent. Yeah.
Okay.
So I am a proponent of that education. It leads to passion, and passion is what leads to success.
Right.
The more passionate that you are about something, or the more educated that you become on something, the more passionate about it that you become. And then when you become more passionate about it and then you want to share what you know with other people, that's really when I feel like those clients and other people really become really attracted to you, in the sense of that they're like, hey, this person really knows what they're talking about, so I want to work with them.
It's exactly right. And so, I know that there's some agents who will book 5, 6 appointments in a day, or 3 or 4. And I always call myself, I'm the turtle agent because I'm slow, I'm thorough. When I meet someone the first time and they don't understand Medicare, I probably spend 2-3 hours with them. That's just in the beginning. And I always tell people, you know what? If you have questions, even if I'm not your agent, even if I don't enroll you, call me anytime. I always answer my phone. And sometimes they'll say, well, no one ever explained it to me that way. So, an informed agent who's willing to share their knowledge is a really good agent. And you'll get business that way. I mean, that's how I've grown my book of business. People will call me, or someone will call and say, you did a seminar 3 years ago and I still have your number and now. Or I always tell people at the end, once I've enrolled them, I'd say, okay, you must have cousins, brothers, church members, sorority members, club members who have questions about Medicare. Give them my number. So, again, it's sort of selling 101. Ask for the business. I always ask for the business.
Actually, this was something that we had talked about. I had talked about with John Janicek about the 5 free ways to generate high quality leads. And one of the things that he had talked about was that he really kind of gets in with the either one person and then will kind of almost like seek out those referrals through either friends or family members and like other community members as well. Because the more honest and truthful that you are in your business and the more that you're able to position yourself as a fountain of insurance knowledge, that's really when people are attracted to that. And I feel like today's consumers are very much more attracted to shopping small. I know that everybody is kind of like obsessed with buying things off of Amazon, but we're also now becoming a little bit more aware of how much waste is happening in the world. Just like our landfills are, getting like overrun, especially in like the fast fashion and the clothing industry and all these other crazy things that are happening in our world. We're becoming a little bit more aware of that. So we want to start shopping small. And individual or independent brokers and agents are the perfect way for people to shop small, because at the end of the day, there's no additional cost to working with an agent or a broker. Like, it's just that you are the resource.
Right. Some people, so I've spent time with them. We've gone everything. They'll say, okay, so what do I owe you? Some people actually think they have to pay a broker. And I said, nothing, except tell all of your friends and family that you have a good agent.
Oh, yeah. So like I said, in my freelance artistry business, people are like, oh, well, I don't have any extra money to tip you. I'm like, you know what? What would be better than a tip? Go leave me a review on my Facebook page. I would love that. I would love for you to refer me to your friends and family. If you have anybody that has a special event coming up or whatever the case may be, give them my number. Please give them my business card. That to me is worth so much more than a tip. Yeah.
Right. Kind of a different version of paying it forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that that's something that a lot of people are looking forward to as well, because again, with the last couple of years, we've all kind of been like trapped inside, we're a little bit more depressed. We're really looking for those silver lining moments. And I think that when, as an agent, one of the most fulfilling things would just be to have someone that is just like, thank you so much. You helped me through so much of this.
Exactly.
I mean, how many clients have, like, after an appointment been like, can I give you a hug?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I call those hugs. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. I'm a hugger. I love hugs. When somebody's like, please give me a hug, I'm like, yes.
And we're all hug deprived.
Yeah.
From not being able to hug for 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But so what's the hardest thing about selling D-SNP products, and what are the easiest things?
I don't think there's anything easy about it, really. And the hardest thing, again, is the time you have to put in. You have to be willing to spend an inordinate amount of time with a D-SNP. And because that's how I entered the market, I know exactly what it takes, that you have to be willing to sit and listen to someone tell you about their ailments, their family situations.
Or in my grandma's case, where she grew up in her entire life story, which might take like 8 hours in a single appointment.
But you have to be sincere about the listening, and you have to be sincere about the time, and you certainly can't do it for the money. I always tell new agents who ask me, and I say, if you're going into the D-SNP market, don't expect to make a lot of money your first 2 years in this business. You're going to spend a lot of time, and it's sort of like planting a tree, planting a garden, and so you're going to plant a lot of seeds, and then all of a sudden it starts to bloom or blossom or bear fruit, and you're going to begin to harvest that. So it's incremental building.
Oh, yeah. I think that this entire business is built around developing the relationships, growing that garden, and really making sure you tend to it and care for it. Because when you think about a garden, like, yeah, sure, you can plant the seeds, but if you're not watering it, if you're not giving it the sunlight, if you're not doing all of these extra things, your garden's going to die. And so you might be able to get those first initial sales, but then if you're not keeping in touch with those clients and you're not keeping a relationship with them, they're probably not going to refer you to their friends and family.
And you have to keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
Whether they're D-SNPs or not, you have to maintain a relationship with your clients. You have to pick up the phone once or twice a year, call them, see how they're doing. And sometimes, you don't hear from them unless there's a problem, and you cross your fingers and say, thank God they haven't called. But then you reach out and call them.
Yeah. Or even sometimes, even if you call them just to say hi. Or even if it's just like, hey, how you doing? And, the next thing you know, they're like, oh my goodness, by the way, I've been getting all this stuff in the mail about, this. So then you're then able to kind of solve those issues in the moment, which therefore kind of keeps them with you. Because imagine if you hadn't been keeping in contact with them and they do have all those questions, maybe there is going to be another agent that's going to be coming around, and then they're going to be like, well, hey, let me ask this person.
Right. Or they may respond to I call them the Joe Namath and Jimmy J.J. Walker ads on TV. They say, respond to call this number and see if you're eligible. Are you for this, that, and that? Are you getting everything you deserve? And I've had people call me and say, do I have a Medicare Advantage plan? Yes, you've had it for 6 years. Well, am I getting everything that I should have? And so they're quoting, chapter and verse from what they've heard on TV. And so you have to break it down to them that this is why this company, it's a call center, they called you. And if you talk to them and they enroll you, change your plan, and there's a problem, who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters.
Who you gonna call? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, they should be calling you. Like, if they have questions, they should be calling their agent. But a lot of people don't know that. And I feel like so many seniors are kind of just in that mindset of that they know that there are scams out there, but they don't know where they are. And
Right.
the scams are getting more and
More sophisticated.
Yeah. I was actually just talking about this with Gabrielle Curry about how even her mom had gotten switched. And she's like, Mom, I'm your agent. Like, why in the world? Like, why? She was like, this company, they don't know anything about how you use this plan. They don't know anything about your health.
They don't know, your doctors, your medications, none of that.
And these call centers, they're literally just calling people just to switch them, just to make the sale. They don't care about how this person uses the plan. They don't care what their income is like. They don't care what medications they're on. All they care about is this. All they care about is the money.
Well, that's how they were established. They're set up to enroll people, period, at the end. It used to be just during AEP, but now it's all year.
Yeah. Because they'll be like, oh, well, you qualify for an SEP because you moved or like you did this. I mean, it's like, but at the same time, if they're happy with their healthcare plan, or if they're like, oh, well, maybe I could get this for a cheaper price. But it's like, just because it's cheaper doesn't mean that it's going to give you the value or the things that you need. Because for me, the perfect plan or just the perfect product in general, maybe not even necessarily insurance based, is where the price meets with value. So if I feel like I'm getting a lot of bang for my buck, that's where I'm super happy about it. But sometimes if it's like you get all of this stuff and then it's really, really cheap, it's like, okay, what's wrong with it?
No, it's not. I don't even think it's that. I just think that, again, if you're talking about D-SNP market, LIS, low income, and even some people who are what I call traditional, they're so accustomed to getting in over-the-counter benefits and the things that are written into the plan, whether it's glasses and dental and hearing, and they expect it. And so if a company is advertising more of these things and you're like, well, gee, my plan doesn't offer that. So let me take a look at this plan. So I say to people, the most important thing for you is your health. And are you choosing a plan because you're going to get extra over the counter? And I mean, how many Band-Aids and bottles of aspirin and vitamins can you get in a year or a quarter? And what's really important is your health. Don't choose a plan because of the extra things. Choose it because of the quality of care you're going to get.
Yeah.
Or get, rather.
And because although the benefits, to me, benefits are important when it comes to any sort of type of plan or any sort of, I'll call it subscription in a sense of that, because you're paying monthly on something for whatever product or service, right? So when you are paying a certain monthly price for something, you expect to get the meat and potatoes of what the actual product or service is. But then there's all the extra things that kind of add in the extra value, the freebies, if you will. So when you have these products that are embedded with the over-the-counter drugs like the aspirin, the Band-Aids, the cough drops and stuff like that, those are nice because, it's money that maybe you didn't have to spend before. Right. Because if you think about it, even in a 1 year period, how many bottles of aspirin does the average person go through? Probably not too many.
Right.
So, which is nice. But at the same time, like, what is it else that is going to give that person the additional value and things individually that they need? Because insurance is never a one size fits all.
That's exactly right. And so I always tell people, I say, well, my neighbor Susie down the corner, my cousin has this and she gets this and this and this. And I say, you know what? Everyone's circumstance is different. And your neighbor, your cousin may have different needs. They may have a different financial situation than you have, and they don't want to talk to you about that.
Or even different health ailments too.
Right. They don't want you to know your health ailments or what medicines they're taking. So everyone is different. So what's the best plan? People will say, well, what's the best plan? I will say the best one is the one that's best for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's a lot of what people ask for as well, or even what people search for online. Because one of the things that I was taught in school when I was learning about digital marketing was consumer search behavior, especially online. So if you type into Google or the keyword search terms, what is the best whatever, and it'll give you like a drop down list of like the most frequently searched for items in that sequence of keyword search terms. And it's very interesting as to how it is that we are looking for products. We're always out here looking for, what's the best? What's the best this? What's the best that? What's the best shoe? What's the best hair care product? But everybody is so different. Like what might work for my hair might not work for yours.
Absolutely not.
Gosh, everybody is so individualized, and we have different preferences, and even what might work for you might not work for your sister or for your cousin or for your neighbor or whatever else. And this goes for every product and
Anything,
service
for
on the
anything.
planet.
And
There
you
is
have
no such thing as
one
best.
size
It's
fits
best
all.
for you.
Right.
So, what advice do you have to give to other either brand new agents or in the field, or even seasoned agents or brokers? What advice would you give to them if they wanted to enter the D-SNP market?
D-SNP market. Have a lot of patience, a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy. Be honest. Be prepared to spend a lot of time with that market. And it's rewarding. You will be rewarded with a client base that's loyal, that depends on you for the best, most accurate information.
Mm-hmm.
So agents have to constantly keep themselves informed about what's coming down the pike in terms of regulations and changes within the industry, things that CMS or Medicare may impose, like recorded meetings and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And so you have to be able to react to that. At the same time, manage your book of business.
Mm-hmm. What do you find is helpful in regards to? I know we had kind of touched on getting provided the education from your carriers and from your FMO partners and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But do you find that as an agent or a broker that having multiple carrier contracts between either traditional Medicare or D-SNPs, and do you find that having multiple carrier contracts has helped you as a broker in not only able to have a different product portfolio and having something for everyone, but do you feel like that in and of itself has helped your education because you're now receiving all of this education from different sources?
I absolutely do. In the beginning, and I think a lot of new agents do that. Oh, I want to be contracted with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll find is you're going to consistently go back to a few carriers, the ones either that you know well and you know them because they perform for you, i.e., perform for your clients, that they have great agent support and they have great client beneficiary support. So those are the ones that work for you. And so as an agent, I'm contracted with a number of carriers, and some I use more than others, and some I do because I have 2 or 3 clients who just say, I want that company, I want that product, I want that product. But it doesn't fit for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just sort of, where do you want to be in the marketplace as an agent? And some agents will write maybe 3 carriers only or 4 carriers only, because that's what works for them. And I've had other agents refer clients to me and say, I have a client that wants XYZ and I don't write that. I'm going to refer him to you. Okay, thanks. Because you can't be all things to all people. You can't be extremely versed in every single carrier. Are you contracted with them? Yes. You have a client who calls or referral and says, I want X company. Like, okay, then as an agent, I will say, then you go and you pull out their kits, their books, you go and look at the trainings they've had, and they're all accessible so that you can, again, give the client the best information.
Mm-hmm. I
And
think
some of it it's like repetition. You've written a certain carrier 8 out of 10 times. You know that carrier like the back of your hand. You can, roll off the benefits, water off a duck.
yeah.
And some you don't. So it's just a matter of, as an agent, how much time are you willing to spend
Mm-hmm.
being comfortable with how many carriers?
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, probably shouldn't say this, but I will say it, especially in this market, the carriers are so competitive with each other. There's very little difference
Mm-hmm.
between the difference may be networks.
Yeah.
Some carriers have what I call an all-inclusive network. If I have 4 plans, carrier X has 4 plans, every professional is in that network. And some have several different networks, some have narrow networks. So I like the plans that have broad networks.
I think that network is one of the most important things, especially to consumers, because they want to make sure that they're able to see their regular doctor. But a lot of doctors that are out in the field right now, they're approaching the age where they need to retire, and there's this new generation of doctors that are kind of moving in. But there are so many seniors that are like, well, I still want to see my doctor. And they're still very much confused about where they can go, who they should go see, and trying to get recommendations from other healthcare providers in the sense of that who can their new PCP be? Who can their new podiatrist be? Who can their new diabetic specialist be? And there's so much uncertainty in that.
There is. And if they have a new person, they're reluctant to call that person. Well, he doesn't know me. She doesn't know me.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of, even in the sense of becoming a doctor to a new patient, there's so much, like there for some people, if that patient is 80 years old, you've got to review their entire life's history in order to get a full understanding of what they need.
Well, and if, number one, the provider or doctor is willing to do it. And secondly, does the client remember? Have you had surgeries? I don't remember. Well, when's the last time you had a colonoscopy? I think it was 4 years ago. Where'd you have it? I forgot. So
yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty just in shoot. I'm screwed when I turn 80 because I already have the memory of a fruit fly, so I can only imagine what it's going to be like in another 50 years. Like, goodness gracious.
Write it down, write it down, write it down. I used to say in another field when I had a home care agency, and we always called it documentation for pay. If it ain't on paper, it didn't happen.
Right.
That I find that in my own health care. When you go to a doctor now, it's like, you fill out this questionnaire. What medications are you taking? Have you had this? Have you had that? And you have a family history of. And it kind of trains you to have all of that stuff written down somewhere so that you're not relying on your memory while you're sitting in the doctor's office. Like, okay, here's a list of my medications. And so I've started like writing somewhere, okay, I had a colonoscopy this year. I had a mammography every year, and I've had this and I've had that. Mm-hmm. And it helps the doctor know you better if you have this information.
Yeah. I also find that it's very helpful even now, too, that correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that there was some sort of legislation or some sort of like plan action sort of deal that was passed where people who are beneficiaries or recipients of whatever healthcare products, whether it be Medicare or even U65 health, that they can give essentially access that's still HIPAA compliant to their next of kin, whether it be their children, their spouse, whoever.
Sure.
So that then now that person can either sit in on that senior's...
Right, can sit in actually on the appointment. Yes.
So that then now they're more aware of what's going on with their parent or their loved one. So that then they can be like, okay, remember you had this done on this date, you had this at this time. Because so last year when I was taking care of my grandparents, while my grandfather was in hospice, my grandma was going through her blood sugar was like way out of whack. Like she was this close to being in like diabetic
coma.
Yeah, pretty much. So I had to make sure that we had a list of all of her medications. I needed to know like what time she needed to take them. I needed to know like what time she normally needs to take her blood sugar and all of this other stuff. And we would have been sitting ducks had we not had access to her medical information. Records. And I was so thankful that now with the technology that we have available to us, we can literally log into her online portal through her health insurance or through the healthcare system and be able to see it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really helpful for the family members too.
And it is because seniors are very secretive. Mm-hmm. And they don't want their children to know or their grandchildren to know.
I think that's another generational gap.
It is a generational thing. And so what I found out is that, it's in my D-SNP market, and I do go over and above and beyond. I've picked up medications. I have taken them to the hospital. I have picked them up from doctor's appointments when they've had glaucoma surgery. And then I find out they have 2 or 3 children who live in the city. And I'm like, well, why didn't they call their kids?
Yeah.
Why'd they call me?
Yeah. But I mean, like, hey, I think that definitely says something about you. And I think it says even more about their kids.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what? I took this woman to her doctors. Yeah. A few instances, where they didn't have or didn't know they had transportation that they could use when they had glaucoma surgery. And then it's just in general conversation. Oh, my daughter came over the other day. And like, well, why didn't you call your daughter to pick you up?
I think that's a big struggle in and of itself. I think sometimes, I mean, a lot of people are just like, oh, well, my kids are just so
The
busy.
kids are busy. My kids are so busy. My daughter's a lawyer and she can't do it, or she's so busy, and she's like, well, okay. Anyhow, I'm busy too.
Yeah.
But you know what? I do it.
I tell my grandmother all the time. She's like, "Oh, well, you're just so busy." I'm like, "Well, grandma, just call." I mean, like, I'll still talk to you. I try to call her at least 2 or 3 days a week, especially if I'm on my lunch break, just to
Oh,
talk to her because now that now she's kind of home
she's
alone.
alone.
Yeah, so I just try to make sure that I'm keeping up with her. And, granted, she's always got the same thing to say, oh, this on the news. And I'm just like, Grandma, can you just like turn on Turner Classic Movies or
Right.
something instead of watching the news? It's not good for your mental health. But yeah, I think mental health is another huge thing that we had kind of briefly touched on earlier. But a lot of what is a generational difference I've noticed between older populations, even like baby boomers, or even the greatest generation, is that they don't want to tell people what's
No,
wrong with them.
no.
Whereas, Gen X, which are people that are under the age of, I think, like 50 or something like that. And then you've got millennials that are anywhere between the ages of 26, I think right now, all the way up to like 40.
Okay, so what's a Gen Z?
Gen Z are people that are under the age of 25 right
Oh
now,
my
I think.
God.
Yeah. It's a lot. And now Gen A is like ages of like birth right now to like age 3 or 4 or 5.
So the Zs and the millennials, and
We're very open about
you're
mental
very,
health.
very open. You tell everything. It's like,
Sometimes a little bit too much.
vomit.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that the world that we were kind of raised in is, especially so with the millennial generation, we very much know what is appropriate to share online and what is not, because we had our parents, which were more than likely baby boomers, that were telling us like, oh, don't put
Don't talk
anything
about
online.
that.
I don't. So like we're very, very still reserved in that sense. We still share a lot. We share a lot about like our mental health and our mental health struggles.
and I think that's good.
Yeah, I think that's something that people weren't talking about before, and now we're talking about it now, and we're realizing all these issues that are going on in our country, and we're realizing that mental health probably has a lot to do with it.
Right.
So if we're starting to put an emphasis on mental health and really starting to talk about our struggles and normalizing issues that we are experiencing, that's really when we can start to realize like, okay, these are problems. We need to work on a solution to these problems. And as far as Gen Z, I think that these kids out here are just sharing way too much about themselves. Way too much.
But that's the world they grew up in.
Yeah. They're so comfortable with technology. I think I've said it on this podcast now a couple of times where I'm very thankful for the era that I grew up in, because I remember what life was like before people started using Google and the internet for business. Like Google was just a search engine. It was like Yahoo.
Right.
But I remember living on my bike and actually going outside and like having friends in real life and
Right.
not just talking to people on the internet. When I got a MySpace page and my mom was like, absolutely not. You are not going to be on MySpace. But of course I did it anyway.
Of course
Sorry,
you
Mom.
did.
But so now we're so normalized in this sense of, oh, you share everything online. And I think that there's a lot that has to be said though about the fact that we are so apt to sharing things online, whether it be positive or negative. But that also opens up the door for a lot of online bullying as well. And it's not
And
just
abuse.
kids anymore.
No.
It's
No.
everybody. Like I've
The
seen
trolls.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I have seen 60, 70, 80-year-old men and women just
Spewing.
chomping at the bit and just attacking each other online. And so this is something that I think that is very important to note as well, because there are people that are going to be out there that are going to pick you apart for your business if you're online. And I think that as an agent or as a business owner, you should have some form of online presence where even if it's just Facebook and having a website, even if it's not a prevalent presence, you still need to have a little bit. But just know that there are going to be people out there that are going to pick you apart and find some reason to not like you, which is the unfortunate part.
I suppose, but a lot of it, I guess, has to do with your own sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to wrap my head around kids who get depressed or, God forbid, even become suicidal because someone they don't know said something about them.
Yeah.
So I don't have that kind of mindset. I don't know that person. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's difficult to get young people to feel that way, to feel self-assured, to feel that they're enough,
Yeah.
regardless of what someone else thinks.
Hmm.
And a lot of it, I think, begins at home. But peer pressure is a horrible thing, and young people succumb to it.
Yeah. Especially when you think about back in the day, especially when I was growing up, if you said something negative about somebody behind their back, guess what? They confronted you in
Right.
person. They weren't doing it over
Right.
the internet. So nowadays, like, people will just say whatever they want online, thinking that it won't come back to them, but eventually it will. And that's one of the negative aspects about the internet and just, having a business in today's world is that people are going to say things about you and you have to be able to defend yourself, but in a way that is going to represent you, your personal brand, what you do, and not give your business a bad name, not give the broker a bad name, which unfortunately a lot of people unfortunately do kind of have like a negative connotation to agents and brokers nowadays because of all the scams that have been going on for the last couple of years.
I think you're right. But, we talked about that, you and I, sort of offline. And
Yeah.
I said, you may have to drag me kicking and screaming into the digital marketing world because I'm a turtle. I'm just slow and sure-footed. And at the end, the turtle did win.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Slow and steady, it definitely wins the race. I think that a lot of people who are now growing up in the digital age will have a lot of difficulty in maintaining relationships, especially. So like, the entire reason as why we wanted to even start this podcast was to reach a younger generation of agents. Maybe if you're in your 20s and 30s, or maybe you just want to like pivot into a different career and you really want to get into this market because you want to help people. You want to stop the scams. You want to have a good name out there for agents and brokers. And it can be really difficult when you don't really have that skill set of being able to be in front of people in real life because you've done so much online. Yeah.
Well, yay IAD, but that's the benefit too of an agent who is new in the business, of having an FMO that will offer those resources to you, give you an opportunity to interact with other agents, and not just agents that are new, but agents that are seasoned and that are willing to share their knowledge. I mean, I'll tell anyone anything about what I know about the industry. So much so that one carrier designated me with, actually it wasn't a carrier, it was one of those, I guess there are only two in town, so I guess I can say they're like a dedicated in Oak Street, and I've worked with both of them, and one of them sort of designated me as the go-to agent when you have questions about veterans and how to enroll veterans and should you and why should you not. So I was getting all these calls from them for that. But it was a chance for me. These were not potential clients, but it was a chance for me to educate them so that they would become better at what they do.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I truly think that we become stronger as a community of agents and brokers and other healthcare professionals when we share what we know and bounce ideas off of one another, because insurance is kind of like one of those very like gate-kept industries where the information is out there, but you really have to seek it out. And so when you're the type of person that is willingly offering up what you know to other people, that's when I feel like people are really, again, like really attracted to that. We want to know.
I enjoy teaching. I enjoy sharing information that I have that I know something you don't. I'm not going to keep it to myself.
Yeah.
Like, what good is that?
Because then it doesn't help you grow. Because if you're not willing to share what you know with other people, then how are people going to share what they know with you? Well, Shirley, thank you so much for joining me today. I had such a blast here chatting with you.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Although we sort of got off on another track.
Have you listened to all the other episodes that we've done so far? Because
I haven't. But no, this was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, guys, thank you so much for all of you who are out there listening, or if you're watching over on our YouTube channel, thank you so much for watching. And if you are new to the industry, if you're an insurance agent and you're looking for an industry partner, we here at Insurance Advisors Direct would love to be considered. You can visit our website at www.iadbrokerage.com, or you can call us toll free 1-800-381-0977. Please follow us on social media as well. We are on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we are on YouTube, as well as TikTok. Thank you so much again, Shirley, for joining me. You were a wonderful guest. I really enjoyed talking about D-SNPs versus PACE with you. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Till next time.
Yes. Okay. Bye, guys.